Okay, so the goal of this section is to give our users the ability to log in and register to our application, but the goal at this stage is not to introduce any kind of battle-hardened, high-security login and registration system. It's just to give an example of a login and register system, and we're going to be storing usernames and hashed passwords in our database. To achieve this, and let's take a look at how we can set this up. So inside Solution Explorer, we're going to go into our entities and we're going to update our app user entity. Now, we're not going to store our passwords in clear text. We're not going to go that low security, but we are going to store effectively a password hash and a password salt inside our database. And we'll add a new prop, and this is going to be for a bytes array, and this is going to be for our password hash. And we'll also do the same for the password salt as well. We'll say byte array and password salt. And then because we do not want to create users without a password hash or password salt, we'll make these required. And we'll do the same for the password salt as well. So we are storing password information inside our database, but by the nature of using the password hashing, that's one-way encryption. So even if a user does use a weak password, that is going to be hashed and encrypted in our database. And then even if every user uses the exact same password, then because of the password salt, that's going to further change that hash. So that even if we've got 10 users with a weak password like let me in, then what we're storing in our database in the password hash, that's going to be different for every user. Now, I'm not saying that what we're doing here is good security, and for certain kinds of websites, this might be fine. An informational website, a marketing site, where you just want to be able to send a user an email, for instance, to let them know something's been updated, but you're not storing any of their personal information, and certainly not any of their financial information, then this might be okay. But really what we're doing in this section is just to set a system up so that we've got the ability to log in and register users with a username and password, as our application is based around users. And we will be coming back to authentication later on, I do promise, as this is not the system that we're going to use to publish our application, but I just want something simple to set up so that we've got the ability to create our user interface based on users that can log in and register. So what we've done here is we've updated an entity class. And we need our database to have the columns, the password hash and the password salt column. Now, in order to update our database schema, we need to create a new migration to do so. So I'm just going to open up the terminal and I'm going to stop the API server from running. And then we're just going to execute .NET EF migrations add, and I'm just going to say user entity updated. Now, we don't need to specify an output directory because we already have a migrations folder, and Entity Framework will use the same one again when creating a new migration as we're about to do here. So I'll press return and this should go ahead and create the appropriate columns in the database. And sure, it's done. So when we do create a new migration, we do want to check it for its accuracy. And inside our migrations folder, we can see that we have the new migration created. Now, this is going to just create 2 additional columns in our database. One for the password hash, one for the password salt. In SQLite World, this is stored as a blob. And that's fine. It's not our job to worry about the database and what it needs. That's Entity Framework's job. And even though we've called it a byte array, this is how it's stored in our database. And we'll let Entity Framework do the translation that we need between our C# code and what the database requires. Now, it is given a default value of a new byte array. And is that what we're looking for? Well, not really, but we do have the required property set inside here. So this isn't going to affect our existing users that already have their usernames and passwords created, or not created as the case is right now, because we haven't got to that stage. So if we take a look at our database, in fact, we need to apply this migration first of all. So let's execute .NET EF database update so that we can apply the new migration that we've created to our database. and that should work successfully. And sure enough it has, and we can see what's happened here. We've got the altering of the table. And if we go and take a look at our database, and I'll just use the SQLite Open Database once again, and just go to our Explorer view, take a look at SQLite Explorer, and what we should have now is 2 additional columns in our database. And if we take a look at the impact of this, then what we have, even though it says required, these were already created, so there's nothing we can do about that. But we've got empty values for the password hash and password salt. We will be dropping and recreating our database once we have set up the ability to log in and register. But what we will not be able to do is create a new user that does not have the password hash and password salt. So a nice simple lesson to start off with, just about how we update our database schema using a migration. And we're going to do some work on a new API controller soon. But first of all, we're going to take a look at a do not repeat ourselves feature and look at class inheritance in C# by creating a base API controller.